And TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast presented by First Bet and Express Bet. He's Scott Shapiro. I'm Jeremy Plonk. We're going to handicap some races this weekend. And when you've got the Kentucky Derby and Belmont Stakes winner in action, it's a pretty good weekend. I don't know if we beat Sovereignty this weekend, Scott, but we're sure going to have fun watching them.
Yeah, we've tried a couple of times with our boy, and I got kind of tired of it at this point. But I'm looking forward to seeing him get back back onto the racetrack, prepping for the Travers, and kind of interested to see how Baeza does. We know he's kind of a cut above the rest, but how far away is he from the top couple?
It's kind of like a golf tournament. Journalism's in the clubhouse. He finished his round last week in the Haskell, and he'll sit back in the clubhouse and wait and see what Sovereignty does when he tees it up in the Jim Dandy Stakes. That's a prep, of course, for the Travers coming up in a month's time at the Spa. For the benefit of those of you on our audio channels, we'll run through the lineup of races Scott and I will handicap in just a moment. For those of you on our video channels on X or on YouTube, be sure to like, share this out, comment in the comment section. Help us grow the audience for the First Call podcast. For those listening in, here are the 8 races Scott and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. We'll go to Saratoga, as mentioned, for Jim Dandy Day, where the Lake George Stakes co-featured on the card for 3-year-old turf fillies. To Del Mar, we go to Del Mar's San Diego handicap, prep race for the Pacific Classic, the Daisy Cutter for the turf sprinters, and then the Bing Crosby, one of the top sprint races on the West Coast annually. The Bing Crosby will get him tuned up for the Breeders' Cup Sprint, which is at Del Mar this year. So a little extra emphasis on these Del Mar races this summer as we look ahead towards the Breeders' Cup. It's Monmouth Oaks Day on the Jersey Shore. We'll check that race out for you. We'll go to Gulfstream for the Miss Gracie Stakes, and then we'll go north of the border for the finale, the Ontario Colleen Stakes from Woodbine. Will be one of our featured races. We've got a great promo for you this week with First Bet and Express Bet. Bet $200, get $20 when you play Saratoga and Del Mar every racing day this weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sundays, we record our podcast on Fridays. Be sure to bet Saratoga and Del Mar $100 each on each track. $200 total will get you $20 back. So a 10% rebate. You're already betting Saratoga and Del Mar, so why not take advantage of that? Bet with us with First Bet and Express Bet, and also be sure to opt into the promo so that you can take advantage of those savings. All of our promos, you opt in your account once you're logged in to get all those promotional details. Scott, there's also a $5,000 hit and split in the Del Mar late pick 4 and pick 5 on Saturday. I know you'll put some handicapping into that.
I sure will. We'll talk about the 3 stakes races that are involved of the later part of the card, but I'll have a full analysis of that up as early as maybe you're up for on Saturday morning. But we'll get it up for you well before the the first post of that is 12 hours after maybe the first post somewhere. But we're looking forward to it. Real good card at Del Mar.
Also on Saturday, the Adios Stakes at the Meadows, one of the top harness races on the calendar each and every year. Al Smagli has got his analysis up for that in written form at expressbet.com and at news.first.com. Be sure to check that out. We've got a good bet and get promotion for the Adios at the Meadows as well. All right, let's talk Saratoga. Let's talk Del Mar and some big stakes races around the country. We're starting things off at the Spa on Saturday. Race number 9 is the Lake George Stakes. The Lake George, a grade 3, mile and a 16th on the turf here for the 3-year-old fillies. It is our Express Bet race of the week. You can get my analysis for the Express Bet race of the week in your email inbox each and every week. Sign up for the newsletter at First Bet and Express Bet, and you'll get that sent to you. Scott, I ended up going with Chad Brown in here because that's just kind of what you do, right? I mean, Chad Brown won this race 7 years in a row or 5 years in a row, 7 times overall until Mark Casse upset him last year. I went with Chad here with number 10, Play with Fire, like the brisk late pace figure, 101 in the Hilltop Stakes, 2 starts back. Last time out, went 6 points faster late than the 2 horses that she'll rematch with in this particular spot. So I think Play with Fire out of the Wild Applause going to be my choice in here. No Flavian Pratt. He's going to ride at Del Mar on Saturday, interestingly, and passing up some pretty good mounts at Saratoga. So no Pratt, but that might help the price with Manny Franco. I'll take the 10, Play with Fire. How about you?
Yeah, tough draw, but a lot of talent, a lot of ability to finish for that Oscar performance, Philly. I'm going to go with Chad Brown too, but not the same one as you, and not the favorite. Mark Casse is starting to really make noise in this division every year, so not surprised he won last year, and He has the favorite in Classic Q here. I'm going to go with the second choice, Lavender Disaster. Was beaten on the square by Classic Q, who kind of ran them off their feet. But speed was pretty good that day. The stalking trip didn't necessarily work out for this filly, but now Irad Ortiz, who's been red hot of late, third off the layoff, draws inside instead of outside. It's his brother on Classic Q. It'll be interesting to see the trip here, but I think there's a move forward for this filly, whereas Classic Q, 7 races in a row already.
Chad put a couple into the frame in yesterday's stakes race, the Curlin at Saratoga. He'll look to continue a good week. Irad won 4 races on the card yesterday at the Spa on Thursday. Let's go back and look at that Wild Applause stakes because we've got a rematch of the top 3.
Being asked to do so. They're at the top of the stretch. Classic Q is asked the question now. She's got 2 in hot pursuit, including Play with Fire on the outside. And in between, Lavender Disaster inside the final 1/8 of a mile. Classic Q, Play with Fire. Classic Q has something left. Just keeps on going on the front end. Play with Fire is second, and second best to Classic Q. Giant effort in the Wild Applause. Play with Fire second, Lavender Disaster third, photo between Fix and to Be and Midway Memories.
See all 3 of them back in the Lake George. If you can't separate them, you want to look to a daily double, back-to-back races on the card. Races 9 and 10 are the features on Saturday at the Spa, including Sovereignty in the Jim Dandy. In fact, one of the better ways to gamble, I think, on the Jim Dandy stakes would be to come up with the horse you like in the previous race and look at the daily doubles. You got a big field size in the Lake George. You got the small field size with the heavy favorite in the Jim Dandy, Scott. Tough to look intra-race coming up with a lot of, stickiness that you want to play in there in the Jim Dandy. So getting to that race or through that race in the multi-race wagers would probably be the better way to go. Let the math work for you. Again, big field of 10 in the Lake George. You got the short field of 5 in the Jim Dandy. I'd look at some daily doubles in there. Horse you like in the Lake George to Sovereignty, if you think Sovereignty is the winner.
Yeah, Sovereignty is who I landed on. No surprise as well. Couldn't have much more respect for a horse that I was kind of, not overly high on, but not down on at all going into the Derby and into the other races. In fact, we had him in that second tier, both of us. But, man, he even showed a little bit of speed out of the gate last time. I know people are worried, and I am a little bit given the price that this is a prep and it's, a mile and a 16th. And, the price is really – and the lack of speed. But he just like journalism, it seems like these horses are just better than the rest. I understand your thought with the double for sure. The other horizontals as well will, a lot of people be keying in on Sovereignty and deservingly so. But if you think you can beat them, then you're really talking about eating lobster at night.
Yeah, and really, I still think that the multi-race way is the approach, is the way to go, even if you're trying to beat them. Because in a 5-horse field, the price you're going to get on Baeza or Sandman to beat this horse in a 5-horse field, probably not that strong. But if you beat him in the multi-race wagers when everybody is lock, stock, and barrel singled to him, this is where you can get some good value. So again, if you want to beat Sovereignty, a daily double from the Lake George into this race with Baeza, Sandman, Moplex, or Hill Road, one of the other forwards, might still be the better value than sitting back and just trying to wait for this race and play. If you can get this horse out of the exacta, would you get a nice exacta in a 5-horse field without him in there? Probably pretty decent, but again, the numbers just aren't there to work for you in the 5-horse field. Enough people can do that, getting cute, to keep the price down. So, and we know the way the calls are invested in the exactas and the tri pools right now in New York, the way the payoffs are coming back at this meet. I just don't think you're going to find any value intra-race in this race at all, even if you want to beat Sovereignty. I think the way to go is multi-race bets regardless. And if you want to beat Sovereignty, I think you're going to get a real multiplier by upsetting him in this particular spot. If he is to lose, which one of the other 4, Scott, would get your first call?
Well, if we're just going kind of gun to head, who's the next likeliest winner? Excuse me, I think it's not even close. Baeza's run the consistently faster races than everyone. He didn't have a great trip last time in the Belmont where he was kind of surprisingly keen. And obviously he didn't have a great trip in the Derby from away outside. Is he better than the top 2 or capable of beating them? We haven't seen it yet. But to me, there's a little bit of an interesting horse, and I will look at the exacta probables because of it. And it's just a pace play with number 3, Moplex, who is a New York bred that needs to run faster. But, he got the job done in a mile and an 1/8 last time. And the difference here with him, and you could argue all 4 of the other horses, is this is clearly not a prep for him. This is the race,
Right.
right? You know, I'm sure they'd be happy to run him in Travers, but they are all in, I'm sure, to win this. He's shown an affinity for the surface, and I just think he's going to get the jump on them. So to me, I think there might be a little value if you look at a 5-3 exacta, but again, the short field does hurt.
Yeah, when you look at Moplex, 8 career starts, 7 of them around 1 turn. They're not looking at mile and a quarter races as their big money event. This would be it, the jam dandy for them, $500,000 here at a mile and 1/8. If they win, obviously, or run really well, they go on to the Travers. But to go for a horse like that at this point in time, like you said, the mile and 1/8 has got to be about right where the crosshairs would be coming out of the Ohio Derby. But they've all got to beat Sovereignty. We're not telling you anything you don't know there. Should be a great race to watch. Again, multi-race bets, I think the way to go on Saturday at Saratoga. Let's now shift gears like Flavien Prat's doing. Instead of Saratoga on Saturday, he's going out to Del Mar, and he's got some interesting mounts on the West Coast. For Del Mar's stakes races on Saturday, we will look at races 8, 9, and 10 in succession. Natural pick 3, if you will, with the San Diego, the Daisy Cutter, and the Bing Crosby. San Diego is one of those Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile win and you're in types, and one of the favorites probably for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, if you're looking in that direction right now, could be Nice Oaks. He's one of the fastest horses in training for trainer Bob Baffert. We've seen him at his best in some races around 1 turn. We know he can stretch out a bit. Maybe he's gone the 2-turn race in the Bob Lewis back in 2024 when he won at a mile. You would think that that's kind of his Breeders' Cup lick, if you will, and a win and you're in here makes a lot of sense for Nice Oaks. Let's see him in action most recently, or his most recent effort, winning the Triple Bend at Santa Anita.
Have pulled clear from Smooth Cruising and Spirit of McKenna there at the top of the stretch, and it's Nice Oaks with the advantage. Opens up 3 just like that, powering through the stretch back home at Santa Anita and showing us the brilliance that he displayed years ago. Look at Nice Oaks just gallop through the stretch in the Triple Bend. He wins by 5, never asked for anything.
Flavien Prat goes out to ride him. He's got mounts in the other stakes races that are major contenders, but this would seem like the horse that got Prat away from Saratoga on a Saturday, even jumping off Baeza, the second choice in the Jim Dandy Stakes. So they've got to beat Nice Oaks in here. He's going to be a very short price. He was 20 cents on the dollar last time. Do you have anybody who can take him down, Scott?
Well, you know, it's a gambling game. He's clearly the most likely winner, but I have a story from the San Diego when I was there. And in fact, it's one of my most memorable racing stories at the track. And it was the San Diego grade 2, but Arrogate was about 1 to 100 in this race when he came back. I needed him in the pick 6. I hit all 5 other legs and he did not win. He didn't run really, hardly ran a step. Yeah. I remember that was like the silence that I wasn't at the Churchill Blame beating Zenyatta, but you know, that was the closest I've come. It was just deafening. So, you know, this race, you know, maybe can produce an upset. Not really why I'm against Nice Oaks, which I'm not, but he's never really gone this kind of distance. He does have the Robert B. Lewis, but that's a long time ago. So I just don't think he's a good bet. I expect him to win, but I do think there's a little bit of value in potentially a number 7 Judge Miller, who's not overly exposed. You know, I think the pace is going to be honest. Maybe there's a chance that Nice Oaks gets cooked up in a pace. You know, one of the other speeds is the Bob Baffert runner Miramati, which hurts, you know, the chances of thinking that those two will duel each other in defeat. But Judge Miller's last race is a complete toss. Mark Glatt's horse just did not fire all that well when they went to Kentucky for that closing weekend. And in general, really did not have a great run in Kentucky. And this horse missed the break that day, was down on the inside, never got into the race, going 1-turn mile. I just think he has some upside still, and I think he's going to get a good trip under Antonio Fresu.
He gets in at 119, gets 5 pounds from Nice Oaks. Judge Miller, top choice in here in the San Diego for Scott. Hall of Fame makes a barn change from Steve Asmussen to Michael McCarthy, now based on the West Coast. And Claiborne Farm picked this one up in an acquisition. So a barn change for Hall of Fame. We'll see how this one shakes out now on the West Coast. Maybe, hopefully for them, try to make their way into the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Again, a win and you're in for the Dirt Mile in the San Diego. These horses also could be prepping towards the 1.25 Mile Pacific Classic, where they could meet Journalism. Journalism's back west right now. Whether he comes east for the Travers Stakes or stays out west for something like the Pacific Classic or the Awesome Again at Santa Anita, still to be determined. I would say the performance of Sovereignty on Saturday will have something to do with what they do with Journalism next. If Sovereignty looks vulnerable coming out of the Triple Crown Series and runs poorly in the Jim Dandy, there's going to be this scuttlebutt of how well that Journalism's doing and heading towards the Travers Stakes. If Sovereignty just takes care of business and looks like a monster in the Jim Dandy, then I think the temptation to just stay home on the West Coast for Journalism makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't travel with him. I don't think it's necessarily ducking anybody, but I wouldn't find any reason to travel with him again when the Breeders' Cup's on the West Coast for Journalism this year. Let's talk more Del Mar. Saturday's Daisy Cutter Stakes, 5/8 of a mile on the turf. A good-sized field in here. A competitive bunch, but absolutely no standouts in this $100,000 Affiliate Mare Turf Sprint, Scott. You've got to kind of dig around to find one that you really want to hug and embrace here.
You sure do. And I think, I'm concerned that the number 10 Pushiness gets overbet. Looks like the speed of the field and, looks like maybe the fastest filly, but she's drawn to the far outside and she comes out of 6 and 6.5 furlong races at Santa Anita, different kinds of races. Mm-hmm. And now the rails are out this week at Del Mar. Rails are out at 18. They're out at 30 earlier in the week. That makes a big difference. If this horse doesn't break well, she's probably done. Now, I know she normally breaks well. I just don't think she's a great play in here. I want horses that are going to get good trips along the inside as much as possible in turf races when the rails are out. And I think that's what's going to happen for number 3, Lovin' on the Run. Third off the claim for trainer Doug O'Neill. I just think coming into this race in good form, this is a big meet for Doug, who doesn't win quite at the high percentages he used to, but he's capable of stringing them together at Del Mar. And I just think really it's a good trip here under Freysu.
This was the race back on May 10th that lured the claim from O'Neill. She's 1 for 2 cents with the victory last time out, but 11 on the run, winning on the turf at Santa Anita back in May.
Here's Lovin' on the Run, pouncing in second. Miss Mayor races third, a length and a half clear of Petite Treat, who's fourth. At the rail, Misty Muppet takes the 5th spot, 6 lengths off the lead with a 1/4 mile to go. Lovin' on the Run, the one to catch, lets it out a notch and spurts clear by 3. Miss Mayor in second, Misty Muppet, Lady Marianne widest of all, and Blue Fashion is finishing strongly between horses. Lovin' on the Run with a 3-length lead close to home. Lovin' on the Run, a prompt favorite. Blue Fashion completes the exact.
I thought an interesting filly in here was Spicy Bug, 5-year-old mare now by Spitestown. She hasn't run since last June. This is Michael McCarthy. Umberto Rispoli opts to ride here over Pushiness, the one who's got more credentials and probably would be the favorite from the public in here, also for Michael McCarthy. So this is one where the trainer enters too. Rispoli rides the horse who hasn't shown up in the entries for more than a year, 13 months off. Interesting. I think Spicy Bug, one to watch in here based on that rider assignment. Let's go to the Bing Crosby Stakes featured race, Grade 1 company here, 6 furlong sprint. We've got 3-year-olds and up in here, but no 3-year-olds are taking on the elders yet this time of year. We see that sometimes in Southern California in the sprint ranks. Actually, Smooth Cruisin' is a 3-year-old in here. I misspoke, coming off a 3rd place finish in the Triple Bend. That'll be the only 3-year-old to take on the older horses in here. We saw Dr. Venkman on video earlier, running 2nd in the Triple Bend behind Nisos. He'll be one of the headliners in here. Dr. Venkman for Mark Glatz runs 7 times in the exacta. He just seems to fire. World record comes west for Rudolph Brisset. Flavian Pratt comes back to ride that one. Crazy Mason comes west. He'll close from the clouds for trainer Greg Sacco. So an interesting group. You got a couple Eastern horses shipping west, and Roll On Big Joe's a West Coast horse who shipped east already and won the Kelly's Landing last time out at Churchill Downs. So these sprinters aren't afraid to travel, and this makes for a very interesting cast.
It sure does, and a big opportunity for all of these without Grade 1 wins thus far, but it's a legitimate, field for sure, definitely competitive. And to me, the pace is going to be quite honest in here. You've got Hijazi, who I think drawing inside the other speeds really has no choice. World record, I think, has one way to go. We'll see if he's up to the California speed. Maybe not, but if not, it's hard to see him being successful. And then you got Roll On Big Joe and Mbognik to the outside.
Mhm.
Even Spiro McKenna has a little bit of speed. I think it's going to be an honest pace, and I think it's going to set it up for the horse you referenced and Dr. Venkman, who I'm hoping is just run into really high quality competition. Other than the Kelly's Landing, which we'll take a look at, I believe, in a moment.
Right.
But he finished a well-beaten second to the impressive Nisos in the Triple Bend. And then they tried 2 turns last time in his last couple of races at Del Mar, and he ran well. I just think he wants to go 1 turn. Likes the surface. I think should get another good trip. And I mean, it's me and Antonio Fresu on Saturday. I did not realize that. I mean, I like him. But yeah, to me, it's probably a now or never spot for me with Dr. Venkman, and he's not even the favorite.
They always say in tournament play, lose 2 in barbecue. You've got Frezu or barbecue. You're either going to have a good day or you're heading out to the picnic. The Kelly's Landing Stakes is the race you mentioned where Dr. Venkman matched up with Roll On Big Joe. It was a road game for both. Now they're back at home. Here they were at Churchill with Travis Stone on the mic.
Back, Dr. Venkman is hemmed in, pinned in, tries to find a seam. Durante wandering about. They have to catch Roland Big Joe. Dr. Venkman shakes loose, late down inside. Durante outside, down to the wire. Roland Big Joe got it. Holding on to do it over an oncoming Dr. Venkman and Durante.
That race came back pretty decently, I think, because Booth, who gave way there and ended up 4th in that race, came back and ran well last week. A good second for him at Ellis Park, I thought, by Booth on the return. So I think that race accounted itself pretty well. Let's go now to Monmouth Park as we switch up here from Saratoga and Del Mar and all the action. I want to remind you before we talk Monmouth, if you like playing handicapping tournaments, Fun in the Sun is for you, Saratoga and Del Mar. The final 5 races at Saratoga, the first 5 races at Del Mar, each week is our handicapping tournament called Fun in the Sun. It's just $25 to play. You're going to make 10 win bets at $10 each, so $125. $100 is bankroll. $25 goes into the prize pool. All $25 paid out. No money cap, no take on the Express Bet tournament Fun in the Sun. All paid out in weekly and seasonal prizes. Be sure to qualify for the final table. With the top 5 finished each week, you'll qualify for the Labor Day final table, which will just be you against 5 times 6, 30 contenders on the final table on Labor Day, playing for about $15,000 to $16,000 in prize money. So be sure to play Fun in the Sun this weekend, Saratoga, Del Mar. To Monmouth we go. Last week they had the Monmouth Challenge on Haskell. I want to give a shout out to a guy we both know and love, my man Dick Girardi, one of the great turf writers and college basketball writers of all time, a Hall of Famer. Dick Girardi won last week's Monmouth Challenge. He played through Express Bet and won against handicappers not only on track but other ADWs around the country. Great to see one of the good guys take down a big prize, and I think he qualified for the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge in doing so. Dick Girardi still firing. We don't see his name in print like we used to, but Dick's still playing the races, and it was great to see him win. I sent him a text. I was like, as soon as I saw the standings, I'm like, all right, now this is one for the good guys.
Dick Girardi, a legend in Philadelphia for sure, not only for horse racing, but college basketball Hall of Famer, I believe, right?
Yep.
I saw him at Philly Park at the time when I was, 20-something years old. He was kind of my idol in many ways and gave me 30 minutes of his time. Ended up meeting him out in California in the press box. I mean, he didn't remember, but man, he was a and now he's become, friendly with him. So congratulations, Dick. And not surprised he got the job done. He's still firing and he's still involved in racing a little bit here in Philly.
Yeah, he does a replay show each week with Jessica Paquette with Danny Gibson from the Pennsylvania Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association. They do a replay show for Parks on cable here in PA. Let's talk about this race at Monmouth, the Monmouth Oaks, grade 3 company here. Of course, 3-year-old fillies when it's an Oaks, but we are on the main track. Some of the Oaks races around the country on the turf, this one on the dirt. We've got a rematch of the Delaware Oaks in here where Fondly for Graham Motion ran her record to 3 for 4. She gets a rematch back in this spot. We've got also from the Delaware Oaks, the 4th place finisher Paris Lilly in this spot. So let's go back and take a look at the Delaware Oaks, and we'll find out if Scott's feeling fond for Fondly once again.
Now Fondly comes to the quarter pole in the Delaware Oaks, confidently handled and leads 3/4 of a length. Paris Lilly has all of her chips in the pot. Cassier's had a very wide trip, and Margie's Intention is starting to storm home, but has lot of fairy ground to close in, and finally kicks away in the Delaware Oaks with a massive kick and leads by 2. The posse's trying to close in, including Paris Lily, Kinsey Queen, and Margie's Intention, but Fondley had a dazzling win in the Delaware Oaks today. Fondley has won it. Margie's Intention second. Kinsey Queen flew home to be in a photo with Paris Lily.
7-2 price in that race. One like a 3-5, not 3.5-1. Finally looked sharp there for the Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners and Madicket Stables. Grand Motion trainee will have Marine riding, Samuel Marine riding locally and riding pretty well off a really sharp Tampa Bay winter. What do you like here about Fondley or one of the others in this 3-year-old test, the Monmouth Oaks?
Well, the difficult thing with Fondley is she was loose on the lead, just kind of jogging along as, wasn't the favorite, but we think the best horse in hindsight. I don't think that's going to happen at all in here. She also had Irad Ortiz aboard that day. I think there's a lot of speed in here. I want to find somebody that wants to pass. I don't think that's Paris Lily. I don't think that's Running Away. I don't think that's Pink Ruby. And I don't think it could be Fondley, but I'm not going to bet at that price, hoping, that she can settle and finish. I'm going to take a swing with a horse moving up in class, number 3, Rosie on the River. This is a filly that's shown an affinity for this racetrack, coming in off a win, pretty much a career best effort. 4th off the layoff, maybe a regression spot, but hopefully she's just moving in the right direction. I should get the right price to find out.
Rosie on the River, trained by Claudio Gonzalez, 15-1 in the morning line. Scott swinging for a homer in the Monmouth Oaks. All right, let's go to Gulfstream Park now for our next handicapping test. We're going to the synthetic here on the Tapeta, to mile and 70 yards. It's the $75,000 Miss Gracie Stakes, field of 6 in this particular spot. You've got Special Aviator on the outside at 5-2. The morning line favorite is number 4, Scarlet Sands at 8-5, coming off a victory last time out.
To the top of the stretch, and Miguel Vasquez just took a look over his shoulder. He sees Bravo stuck in traffic. Off the turn and the stretch drive, Scarlet Sands now roused forward to take on Claimed, who's fighting hard. Scarlet Sands on the outside. Claimed is back for more inside. Scarlet Sands driven out. Claimed is game, but she's second best behind Scarlet Sands, who's in front. Claimed is second.
Now, you were 4th in that spot with Scarlet or Special Aviator in there. Special Aviator since has come back to run, so you've got a little more recency. Do you see a flip of the script in this one? I think you've got Special Aviator beating Scarlet Sands this time.
I do. We have a surface switch, so I'm hopeful that is, matters a little, because Scarlet Sands has never raced over the all-weather. Right. This is a pace play, and I'm hopeful because Edwin Gonzalez is pretty aggressive, and he might see it on Scarlet Sands. But I think Spatial Aviator has a little more speed, at least proven so on the all-weather. And I think that Jose Morales, or hopefully, will try to use it. I think if she can cross over in this compact group and make the lead, she might be tough to catch.
Why do I see you cursing 10 seconds into this race when this horse isn't where you think she's going to be?
Could very well happen. At 5-2, I don't think it'll be a day maker either way. But I still like to be right and like to help some people. And, yeah, I mean, not a real strong opinion in this race amongst those two. They do look like the ones to beat.
Yeah, not criticizing the fact that you think the filly will make the lead, just the fact the jock probably won't do what you want him to do. It just
8%.
It never seems to work that way, does it?
I mean, it depends who you got on board. There's some guys. If I have Luis Saez on board and I think he's going to the lead, he's almost always going to the lead, which is what I like,
And that's a little bit of a note for players out there. It's like, we do a national show here with all the different stakes races around the country. But when you lock in on a particular circuit, you get to know the riders much better than if you're just bouncing all over the place. I mean, some of the national riders, you get the sense of, what their style is. But that's a good advantage for you as a local player. It doesn't have to be the track where you live closest to. But whatever you make your home track for betting, the one you bet the most, get to know all the details, what trainers do pattern-wise, things like that. Not just the stats and the form, but what the trainers typically do and what's normal for them, what they do, ask of their horses in the morning for workouts. And then all of a sudden you see, wow, this horse really worked quicker on time than what this trainer normally does, it can be like a standout for you. Same way with knowing rider styles and things like that. Get to know the riders and the trainers in a particular area, and that gives you a little bit of an advantage over people who are just firing off of speed figures, firing off of trip notes, whatever kind of statistics they can come up with. I think knowing intimately the connections at your local circuit can be a really good handicapping tool for a player who's trying to find an edge. In a game where the edges are quickly dissipating for a lot of folks, I think that's one that you can still hone in on a little, Scott.
Totally agree. It's a little bit of a feel thing, an art more than, what a lot of, and that, to your point, we talk about the computers. We talk about a lot of top players using data for almost all of their info, and they're playing a lot of places. It could give you that micro edge that makes a difference.
Right. You only need an edge a couple times, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's consistently over time, the data is going to play out. But
micro edges is all we're looking for in gambling. We're not expecting macro edges too often. Even the computers don't,
Right. I mean, like if you're playing every race every day and playing on small margins and trying to make a percentage with a rebate and everything, it's a totally different kind of data set than somebody who shows up once a week, buys a form, handicaps 10 races, and you're a great player. You play 52 weeks a year and you buy a form every Saturday and play. I do not call that person a recreational player. I call that person devoted, and I think we kind of get like a bad misnomer that a weekend warrior is some kind of like, secondhand player. To me, that's the cream of the crop of your everyday regular kind of person, who plays the races. They have time, they have the money to get out there once or twice a week max. And when they do play, they're serious about it. They put several hours into their handicapping. They enjoy the puzzle process of putting it all together. I think we need to encourage more of those people. I think we used to have a lot more of those people in the game. And certainly I think we would benefit from having them and catering towards them. So try to find those edges if you can. That's one of the morals of the story. And hopefully you can do that and, compete at a strong level and have some good weekends playing the races. Let's go to Woodbine for our final 8th race to handicap this weekend. It's the Ontario Colleen Stakes. It will be race 8 on the card at Woodbine as well. It's a 1-turn mile on the big turf course there, the E.P. Taylor turf course. The Ontario Colleen Stakes has 3-year-old fillies in this particular spot. Scott, who do you like in this one?
I like the 8-horse Tis Her Money in here. Third off the bench for Mark Cassie, who is always well represented in these spots. He's got Candy Quest as well, who some folks might be familiar with from the States. I think the pace is going to be lively, and I think this is a filly sitting on her best. Comes off a runner-up effort when she didn't get the ideal race shape on June 28th in the Celine. Had to swing wide. That, might happen again in here, of course, with the outside post and the running style. But hopefully she gets a little bit of a better setup.
All right, Celine Stakes, last time out with the runner-up effort. Let's give you a chance to see Tis Her Money.
Way coming into the clear, something about her, and is 3 behind as they corner, and Serendipity leads into the stretch in the Celine Stakes. Not a trouble in second, and down the centre, something about her, and coming home well is Tis Her Money right out wide on the track, and well clear Serendipity marched away. Tis Her Money tearing home at the rate of knots, right down the outside is flying home, but Serendipity stole a winning break, and a beautiful winning ride. Rafael Hernandez, Serendipity by 2.5 lengths. Tis Her Money second, a similar margin.
Robert Geller with the call there from Monmouth. Thanks to all the track announcers who helped make this podcast a little better to listen to and certainly follow the action on the racetrack. Shout out to all of them that we used here on the podcast this week. But Scott, it's a big weekend because we got that one superstar in action. I'd be remiss if we didn't go back one last look at the Belmont Stakes. We've got Sovereignty back in action. Can't wait to see him Saturday.
Journalism makes a decisive move with 1/4 mile to go, and he takes command of the Belmont Stakes. Sovereignty angles out to try and run him down. It's a rematch of the Kentucky Derby as they come to the 8th bull, and here comes Sovereignty. Sovereignty goes right by journalism once again, leaving absolutely no doubt who the best 3-year-old in the world is. Sovereignty and Junior Alvarado in the Belmont Stakes. Journalism was second. Baeza finished third.
Give you the final word this weekend as we get to see a good one back.
I thought Tis Her Money looked like she was finishing well with the 101 late pace rate in there in the Celine. And then I saw one of the best finishes I've seen. it's hard for me to have been more impressed with a horse that I was not necessarily rooting for than I was that day. And yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing Sovereignty run again. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a closer margin. He was kind of more fit maybe for that race, and it was obviously more of a goal. But watching that horse finish is a lot of fun.
He'll probably be about 1-5, and it'll be 1-9 for the graveyard of favorites to come up if somebody's able to beat him in there. You know, the cliche will be brought out quickly and often. So the Jim Dandy Stakes feature race on Saturday at Saratoga. Can't wait to see that one. We got the Bing Crosby on the West Coast at Del Mar. Should be a good one. Be sure to play this weekend in the Fun in the Sun handicapping tournament. Saratoga, final 5 races. Del Mar, first 5 races. Check that out in the tournament section at expressbet.com. On behalf of Scott and our partner, Jeff Siegel, get well wishes out there to you, partner, and everybody with First Bet and Express Bet. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Tuesday on the It's Official podcast.